Hello everyone. Today in this video we are going to talk a bit on Graham Greene and the story A Shocking Accident, which you've got to study in Ways with Words. To talk about Graham Greene, in Moscow in 1987, Graham Greene was asked by a television interviewer what made him write. Now that was quite an interesting question to ask to a writer. Now I don't know, he replied, it's like an illness. For Graham Greene, writing was a sort of an illness. He says that it's like a boil on one's cheek, and at certain moment you feel like you want to scratch it. You want to scratch it off. Life would be quite impossible for me if I knew that I would not be able to write another book. Now this was Graham Greene. See, there are so many writers, so many authors, poets, or writers for that matter, who had to take drugs, who had to take lots of stimulants so as to write. But then here we have Graham Greene, who had to take pills or take tablets or take some sort of drugs so as to stop himself from writing. Graham Greene was enormously well read, and he had a vast collection of books, and he held lots and lots of influential positions in major publishing houses. And we feel like he traveled a lot, and we feel like his only hobby seems to be like touring second-hand bookshops. Now he always had acknowledged that books had a great influence on him. As a professional writer, he was very prolific and enormously disciplined. And for him, as I told you before, like Anton Chekhov once said, he had always had this obligation to write and to write and to write again and again. Henry Graham Greene, that is his full name, was born on October 2nd, 1904 in Berkhamsted, Hertfordshire, as a fourth child of Charles Henry Greene and Marian Raymond Greene. He was educated at Berkhamsted School and at Balliol College. He published his first novel, The Man Within, in 1929, after the publication of which he said that he would not continue writing, or he vowed that he would stop writing altogether if this novel, The Man Within, would be unaccepted by the readers. Maybe because he had written two of his other novels before, and that did not turn out to be successful enough. In 1922, he entered Balliol College, Oxford, and of course did join briefly in the Communist Party as well. Later on, he converted to Roman Catholicism as he fell in love with a Catholic convert, Vivian Darrell Browning. Now the 30s, the period 30s, proved to be quite a productive period for Graham Greene, as he was able to produce almost one book a year, one novel a year. Greene was quite secretive by nature, and that did help him a great deal when he was recruited to the Secret Intelligence Service. And writing was a space where Greene lived. You could find Graham Greene, his real nature, himself, in his own works, in his writing. Writing was quite a kind of a cathartic or purgatory kind of a thing for him, and you got to know him, you got to understand who Graham Greene was, not through his words or not through anything else. It is through writing that you get to know him. He has to his credit lots and lots of poetry collections, short story, novels, plays, and so on. Babbling April, which was published in the year 1925, Stamble Train in 1932, Journey Without Maps in 1936, Brighton Rock in 1938, The Power and Glory in 1940, The Heart of the Matter in 1948, The End of the Affair in 1951, A Sword of Life in 1971, etc. are some of his very important works. Now, A Dangerous Edge, A Life of Graham Greene, is a documentary about the life of the author. and most of his fictional works have also been adapted into films. Graham Greene has always been considered as a very serious, seedy chronicler of sex, sin and salvation, and somewhat neglected aspect of his art is his sense of comedy. Towards the end of his life, his books grew funnier. He says about his short stories, I quote, "I am struck by an odd fact. Humor enters very late and unexpectedly." In the late 1960s, Graham Greene published his most overtly comic works. His collection, May We Borrow Your Husband, from which this particular story, A Shocking Accident, is taken. That May We Borrow Your Husband was published in the year 1967, where he says that he had written this particular work in a single mood of sad hilarity. It was during the last decade of his life that he had written this particular work as a sort of an escape in humor from the thought of death. He goes on saying that writing is a form of therapy for him. Sometimes he says, I wonder how all those people who do not write, who do not compose, who do not paint, who do not have any sort of art to pursue, how can they of course manage madness, the melancholy, the panic fear, which is of course inherent in any human situation. Now this story that you have got to study was originally published in the magazine Punch in the year 1957. Later on it reappeared in Greene's this particular collection that we were talking about, May We Borrow Your Husband, which was published in the year 1967, and this story was also adapted into a short comedy film by James Court in 1982. Now before moving on to this particular story as such, I would like to give you a brief, a very brief account of, or a very brief explanation of what black humor is all about, black comedy is all about. Black humor or black comedy is a form of writing where you get a very humorous treatment of the shocking, the horrific, the macabre element of your life, and it displays a sort of a disillusionment or cynicism, and shows human beings as quite helpless, without any convictions or hope, in a kind of a very absurd predicament. This particular type of writing talks of the meaninglessness of life. In this kind of comedy, we are surrounded by despair, of course, hopelessness, absurdity, of course, but then we cannot do anything except to laugh. Now this particular story that we are going to talk about, A Shocking Accident, can be grouped under this form of writing, black comedy or black humor, where death, which is of course scary in every sense, horrifying in every sense, it's a very horrifying experience for human beings, but then it brings about laughter in people. The fact that one day you will die is of course important. The fact that death is quite inevitable, you cannot have an escape from death, is quite important. That you, of course, as you saw in Appointment in Samara, the manner of the death, how you die, is also equally important. Or what kind of a death is being considered serious, how the manner of death would affect your kith and kin, your relatives in future. See, what kind of a death is serious? A person who is hit and run by a vehicle, or a death when a coconut falls on somebody's head and the person dies. Which death is considered as something which is so very serious, something so very horrific? And is it that one kind of death is less important than the other? Does manner of death obviously count in life, or how you die? How is your manner of death? How the fact that you die because of some sort of an illness, or because you are hit and run by a vehicle, or by any means, by any manner, how is that going to affect your children? How is that going to affect your kith and kin? Does your manner of death count? Graham Greene, as I told you before, wrote this particular story a shocking accident when he was approaching his death, and he wanted to see humor in the most horrific things in life. And of course, death is the most horrific thing that you can have in life, and the pain and suffering of one person become a reason for ridicule, a reason for laughter or happiness, not happiness actually, laughter in others. Now this whole story is about a shocking accident, and there are lots and lots of shocking things in this particular story. What is shocking in this shocking accident? Is it the accident itself which is shocking, or is it the manner of, is it the death which is shocking, or is it the manner of the death which is shocking, or is it the fact that is it how the death was treated by others which turns out to be shocking in this particular story? Now let's see this particular story so that you understand the story as a whole, and we would be able to analyze it in a better way. Yeah, let me give you a very small idea of this particular story, kind of a summary like thing, so that you get to know, or we would be able to discuss the different aspects of this particular story. A shocking accident. Now this the protagonist of the story is a boy named Jerome, who is almost 8 or 9 years old, and he studies in a very expensive preparatory school, where he is a very good, decent, excellent, studious, well-mannered sort of a boy, and who is being entitled to the position of the warden. See, this position of the warden is given, it's not like the hostel warden also, it is a position which is given to the boys who are quite excellent in everything. From a warden you become a guardian, and at the end of it you become a crusader. Now when this person Jerome, who was sitting in his class and he was studying, and he was summoned by the housemaster actually, that is Mr. Wordsworth, and he summoned him to his room. Jerome, when he entered the room of Mr. Wordsworth, saw a sort of perplexity and apprehension on the housemaster's face. Now the housemaster did have a very shocking news for him. Obviously, what happens is, when you have a shocking news with you, you wouldn't reveal, or you wouldn't break the news altogether. I mean, in a very abrupt way, in a very shocking way. You do not, of course, break the news to the person. Instead, what you do is you do ask some casual questions, like Wordsworth was asking, like what about your studies, how is trigonometry going, and then you slowly come to this particular matter that you want to reveal, right? That is how it goes. Now slowly what happens is, the housemaster tells him that he had a call from his aunt, and the aunt has given him a very shocking news of his father having or meeting with an accident, and your father has had an accident, and of course it was a shocking news. It should be a shocking news for any boy, for any child for that matter. A father meeting with a father had met with an accident is of course a very shocking news. But then all of a sudden we get shocked, because it's not Jerome who gets shocked, instead we get shocked, because there is no reaction, or there is no change of expression that we see on his face. There is no change of expression on his face. We need to think about it, like why was Jerome not shocked by the news? Was the news not was it not a kind of a shocking news for him? If it's not a shocking news, there should be some sort of a problem, right? I mean, or is it that Jerome had become so matured enough that he could carry a shocking news without a taint of shock in it? Or maybe that could be one reason, or maybe he's quite ignorant of what happens in an accident. See, somebody meets with an accident, you do not know what is going to happen with an accident and all. So maybe he's so ignorant. No, he cannot be so ignorant in that sense, because he's the most excellent boy in the school. He's well mannered, he's very decent, he's very serious, he does everything, he knows everything. So it cannot be that he is quite ignorant of these things. Instead, there is something else, in the sense Jerome did not cry. That was the thing. He did not cry. He was not shocked. But then who was shocked? Housemaster was of course shocked, because Jerome was not shocked. And once you give a news, especially a shocking news, especially a sad news, a painful news, you expect some sort of a change or some sort of a behavioral pattern, right, from the person who is listening to it. But then if you do not get that, you demand it, or you want it, right? When you do not get that sort of a reaction, you try to bring that particular reaction, like what Wordsworth was doing right now. It is a serious accident. Yeah, yes sir, it is a serious accident. But then all of a sudden, see, Jerome, all of this time, Jerome was trying to figure his father. He was trying to figure or recreate his father as a restless widowed author into a mysterious adventurer who did travel to lots and lots of places. He was a person who loved to travel a lot. He had always considered his father as quite an adventurous sort of a fellow, quite a brave sort of a fellow, and he had always felt that his father was a spy. His father was somebody who did work for the British for the Secret Service, British Secret Service. He felt like his father was a member of the British Secret Service, or he felt like he was a spy, and he had always had in his mind an adventurous sort of a person who is so very brave, a person who travels a lot, a person who leads a very kind of a very brave life. And now what happens is, the fact that his father met with an accident brought about all these images of his father to his mind, and then the expected emotion from a son, when the son is being told that his father has met with an accident, there is an expected emotion, right? There is an expected feeling which should of course come. That did not come, and what happened was, Mr. Wordsworth was all the time trying to bring out that emotion, and at the end of it, when the emotion was not coming in the real way, Mr. Wordsworth said that your father was killed. Your father was seriously hurt, and then your father was killed. He died yesterday, quite without a pain. Now, all of a sudden, the question that Jerome asked was, did they shoot him through the heart? So what we get to know is the sort of an image that Jerome all the time was carrying about his father in his mind. See, an image where his father would be fighting, would be shooting, would be like, he was always imagining a sort of a street accident where police would be running after him, and police would fire first, and it would be only after that his father would fire. Kind of lots and lots of images that was passing through his mind, that all of a sudden Mr. Wordsworth told him that it was not out of any such things that his father died. Instead, a pig fell on him, and it was a pig that fell on him. That is how he died. Mr. Wordsworth was all the time trying to be serious while narrating this particular thing about the death of Jerome's father. But then what happens is, he couldn't shake away the laughter that was coming to his cheeks when he was narrating the death, when he was talking about the manner of the death of Jerome's father, when he was narrating how Jerome's father died. Now, his father was walking along the streets in Naples on his way to Hydrographic Museum, as Jerome's aunt would later put it to strangers, put it to others, that a pig fell on him from the balcony of the 5th floor. Now, how a pig came on a balcony, how a pig fell from the balcony, and all these things are quite a mystery. Now, when all these things are narrated, the only thing that Jerome finds, or the only thing that Jerome sees, is of course the laughter that was swelling inside Mr. Wordsworth when he was narrating the death of his father, and there was a lack of emotion in him. There was a lack of emotion, which was of course quite shocking for Wordsworth. Jerome was a boy who did not cry. He was a boy who brooded. He was a boy who all the time were trying to visualize his father's death. He was trying to understand it, comprehend it in all its aspects. He couldn't understand, or he couldn't. Of course, his father died. A pig fell on him, and his father died. But now the fact that he couldn't comprehend, or he couldn't understand, was why his father's death, which was so painful for him, because his father was a person whom Jerome had always kept on a pedestal. Like, he had always given a godly sort of a position. He is always respected. He was always adored his father so much, and the fact that his father died, the fact that his father, the only person he had in his life, because he had already lost his mother before, and we do not get the mention of his losing his mother and all, but then we assume that his mother is no more, because then later on we talk about aunt and other people except his mother. So his mother is no more, and see an 8 or 9-year-old boy losing his father, it's quite a painful and a traumatic incident for a son, right? But then all the time, how does his father's death become comedy for others, especially to his own teacher and to those people in the preparatory school, the students there, the friends there, especially to his best friend. He was even his best friend was laughing while narrating the whole incident. Now, all the time Jerome was thinking, he was brooding over, as I told you, he was quite a brooding sort of a person. He was brooding over how the loss of the most beloved person in his life affected others. Most of the time after the death, he was even called a pig. People laughing at him, treating the death as a comedy and calling him a pig. That's quite horrific, right? Now there are of course people like his aunt who always tries to exaggerate tragedy so as to gather as much attention from the audience, as much audience that she could get, so as to listen to her stories. Now the way she narrated this incident, the way she narrated her brother's death or Jerome's father's death, of course would pain Jerome throughout his life. See, here is a boy who is growing up with the harsh reality of his father's death. Harsh of course for him, but comic for others. It's like death has no meaning at all. It's like life has no meaning at all. Now Jerome's father, the only moment that we get to know of Jerome's father is when he is pictured in the story in a photograph, an enlarged snapshot of his father, which is there where his father is on the piano with a dark suit, posed in capri with an umbrella. Jerome had always treasured the picture postcards of his father, and he had always treasured that. He had always adored his father, worshipped his father, taken him or understood him as a great traveler, as a great writer, though not a very distinguished one for the whole world. For Jerome, he was a great writer because he had published some books. Now, Jerome, a boy of 8 or 9 years old, see, this particular death of his father is going to affect him throughout his life. from the very moment Mr. Wordsworth revealed the death, from the very reaction of Mr. Wordsworth, from the reactions that he got from the preparatory school, from his friends, from his best friend even, the fact that he was called a pig, the fact of how his own aunt, the only person he has got in this world right now, his aunt, who is his father's sister, how she did narrate, or how she was trying to celebrate the tragedy. It's not, of course, celebration. That is also another way in which people try to come to terms with the reality. Maybe aunt is trying to come to terms with the reality through narration. Narration is also a sort of a healing, right? So she was always exaggerating on how the death occurred. And another thing that would bother Jerome throughout his life is the fact that, being a writer, there would be a chance, or there is a chance, that some researcher would one day come and inquire about his father's death, as a researcher might want the details of his father's life and death, and how he lived, how he lived and how he died, so that he could bring out an autobiography of him. What if Jerome was all the time thinking, like, what if some literary supplements are trying to bring out the biography of this less known writer? What if he had become so very valuable or so very non-popular after death? We have lots and lots of writers who turns out to be popular after death, posthumously they turn out to be great writers. What if they come and ask to him about some of the letters, some of the anecdotes, or to him or to his father's friends? Now that Jerome has passed his adolescence and he has become a young chartered accountant, living far away from this literary world, he all the time expects a stranger to reach and tap his door to inquire into his father's death. What happens is, in order to prepare himself, what happens is he rehearses it again and again, over and over, of how he is going to narrate his father's death. How is he going to put it? He is thinking of should it be short enough so that nobody laughs, so that the comic element of it is reduced to its smallest dimension? Or should he actually put it or explain it? Should he give all the details, even the minutest details, which led to his father's death? He was all the time, even he has passed his adolescence, he was all the time haunted by, he was all the time traumatized by traumatized or haunted, or he was all the time brooding over his father's death, and how is he going to narrate it to a stranger, a complete stranger, a reporter, any person who wanted to write his biography? He rehearses it over and over. So death of his father is haunting him throughout his life. That is what you see here. Of course, throughout his life he had all these thoughts, and what happens is he later on gets engaged to a pleasant, fresh-faced girl of 25 who reads a lot, who reads Hugh Walpole and all. She was very sensitive as well. Now another problem which arose was, of course, Jerome was a person who was so affected by the social opinion, or about how society would take his father's death, how society takes his father's death, and he is very much bothered and very much frustrated by the fact that society, the people around, laughs at his father's death, takes his father's death as a comedy, takes death as a whole as a comedy. And now another problem which comes to his life is, once he has fallen in love with Sally, who is quite sensitive, who reads a lot. Maybe she understands and sympathizes with him, but then at the same time he is very much affected, or he is all the time bothered about how is he going to narrate the whole story of his father's death to a person with whom he is going to spend his whole life. What if she too laughed? What if Jerome of course couldn't even imagine the moment when he narrates the whole story to Sally and she laughs, and See, he narrates the most painful event of his life, the most painful lows of his life, and she laughs. He cannot imagine that sort of a moment. Now that Jerome was going to get married to Sally, and very easily he would become a father, and as any other boys who develops a sort of love towards their father once they become fathers, he too felt a need to protect the memory of his father. And he cannot of course picture the laughter on Sally's face. That would sometimes make him hate Sally, or see Sally, who's going to be his wife in his life. So what if she loves, and what if he hates him for the rest of his life? Now Jerome had just mentioned to her about his father's death, like it was a street accident or so, and she did respond in a very sentimental way, but then she got the full details of his death from his aunt when they went to his aunt to visit his aunt before the marriage, and Sally got to listen to the story. Now the whole world was laughing at Jerome's father's death. The friends were laughing at, teachers were laughing at his father's death. Even aunt was kind of exaggerating his father's death. But all of a sudden, Sally, on the contrary to Jerome's belief, Sally did not laugh. Sally, it was quite horrible for her. She was thinking about the fact that all of a sudden, out of the blue, a pig falls on a person's head and somebody die. All of a sudden, out of the blue, something happens to somebody and somebody die. Why does Sally think so? Sally is very much sympathizing. Sally, of course, she is very sensitive. Is it that she does not have this the sense of humor which others had? Or is it that she was the only person who could understand Jerome well? Or is it that maybe Jerome had a perfect partner that way? Or is it that Sally could understand it? She was not like others. She was quite sympathetic and quite sensitive, that she was able to take the real horrific side of it. Now Jerome and Sally did have the same question about his father's death. What happened to the pig? So that way, every way they were equally, they were made for each other, kind of a couple. Now to wind up, this is a story which talks about a young boy who had to bear the trauma of his father's death on the one hand, and also had to bear the laughter others had at his father's unfortunate death. Jerome, a boy of 9 years old, he gets frustrated. Jerome, who is a boy who is very, very silent, very brooding, and he gets frustrated when people are not able to share or sympathize or understand his pain. More than that, of course, he is very much affected by the society. More than that, throughout his life, he is trying to lessen the comic element in the narrative part of his father's death, in the narration of his father's death. Now here is a boy who had lots and lots of romantic notions about his father's death. All of a sudden gets to know that his father dies in a very father's death happens in a very quiet, in an unusual and comic vein. He of course gets affected too much by people's reactions. Shocked probably not by the accident, but by how people reacted to the accident. And at the end, he realizes the fact that, of course, there are people like Mr. Wordsworth, there are people like his friends, there are people like his aunt, who probably did not understand the horrific side of death. Or there are people like those people who were not able to sympathize with others. But then on the other hand, he also realized that there are people like Sally who could understand, who could really understand others, who could really see the horrific side of it, or who does not see who does see death in a very serious vein. Yeah, that's it. Thank you all.